Thank you very much. It's great to be here. And I want to thank, first of all, President Milioni for this opportunity to share my life, to share my experiences, to share my thoughts. Not too many people want to know my thoughts. And so I'm grateful that I can share my thoughts, whether you want to know them or not. And great to be able to be here and just, that was a joke, so y'all can laugh. Break the ice here a little bit. And just want to thank President Milioni for the opportunity to share my ministry with you, the students of Baptist Bible College, just in case you're not really sure who you are and where you're at today. You're the students of Baptist Bible College. I thought we were tough in the 70s. Now, I've been told that students do not like hearing speakers come back and say, well, when I was in school, so I won't. But I do want to say it is an honor to be here on campus these next couple of days. And it's just an honor to be here and to be able to share with you just what the Lord has done in my life over these last 36 years of ministry. And since I left BBC in 1977, I'll be very truthful, this was a tough couple of days to plan for. I'd rather just come here and preach to you. Just have a good time, just preach to you, and pull out some of my, best sermons over the last 36 years and my best illustrations and try to wow you as students. I'd much rather do that. This was tough because what do I say and how do I say it? And let me just say this. I've been asked to come and talk about our church, our ministry, and what we've done. And so over the last week, I've been trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to just kind of boil it down so that it'll be somewhat interesting to you. I don't want to sound braggadocious at all, so if I do sound that way, just forgive me because I'm not trying to do that. I'm just as insecure as you are. Now, this guy here, he doesn't look very insecure. I saw him singing. He's about the most outgoing guy in here. But, those guys that act like that usually are the ones that are most insecure. And, I'm just as insecure as you are. And as a student, sitting where you're sitting, man, I was insecure. And just wondering, will God ever use me? Will God do anything in my life? And 36 years later, I'm glad to say that he's done a little bit, and we're here to share some of those things with you. The truth is, in the Baptist Bible Fellowship, all of us are connected in one way or another. We really are. Through churches, through marriages, families, friends, we're students together. We're all connected in one way or another. President Milioni, we met probably 6-7 years ago in passing at a Live camp. We met again, this summer. And so, but there was a connection there. We're all connected in one way or another. Our churches are connected. Our families are connected. A gentleman by the name of Dr. Art Wilson, who's one of the founders of Baptist Bible Fellowship, Baptist Bible College, he led my father to Christ in Wichita, Kansas when he was 14 years of age. My dad was just a street kid. He was just a punk. he cussed and fought, and he was an orphan, never knew his real father. His mom adopted him out, and they were in a place called Luke's Barbershop, and one day Luke the barber said to my grandmother, Dixon, Buddy, they called him Buddy back then, he's going to come and live with me. And my grandmother said, okay, that's fine. At 8 years of age, my grandfather Dixon adopted him. And they lived in Wichita, Kansas, and my father, at age 14, went over to beat Art Wilson's son up. His name was Ray Wilson. He was a missionary in Mexico, BBF missionary in Mexico for 40-some years. His wife is still in Mexico. He's dead. His wife is still in Mexico, in Leon, Mexico. Doing a great job. And he went over there to beat him up. And Mrs. Wilson came out and said, little 14-year-old boys that use your kind of language, you can't play basketball in our yard. And then she invited him to a tent revival. He went that night. And at 14, the first time I heard the gospel, received Christ as his personal Savior. We're all connected. Our church, the Indianapolis Baptist Temple, was started by a man by the name of George Young. My father graduated from BBC in 1953. He was in the first graduating class of the school. I graduated in 1977. My oldest daughter, Shannon, and son-in-law, Scott, who are our youth pastors there in Indianapolis, they graduated in 2005. Over the last 63 years, hundreds of students have attended BBC from our church. And we have missionaries on the field, and just hundreds of students through the years have come to BBC. We're all connected in one way or another. And you know, we have always, as a church, supported BBF missionaries. In fact, this year in 2010, or 2013, we decided to set a new goal. We always set out about 10, 12 new goals for the year. And one of our goals this year is, besides what we're already supporting, which are dozens and dozens of missionaries, and most of them BBF missionaries, we decided we're going to take on, by faith, didn't really have the finances, but by faith, we're going to take on 10 new missionary families. 2 years ago, when President Milioni was brought in as the president of the school, and I was here, we had a student that was graduating, and we had a couple of students that were married that were being approved for the mission field. And I sat there for the first time in 36 years in a missions presentation. I don't know why I'd never done it before, just had never done it. Never really interested. No reason to. But I did for the first time because these folks from our church, Joe and Darcy Flory, they were going to be approved to be missionaries of the BBF. And I sat there, and there were 7 missionary families that they paraded across the platform. And I'll tell you, I was impressed. All 7 of them were unbelievably sharp. And they spoke well, and they looked good. They may have been faking it, but they really did a good job faking it. They really looked good. And they were sharp. And this year, our goal is to take on 10 new missionary families. And many of them, as I said, BBF missionaries. Because they know how to do the job. You know, one of the reasons that I love Baptist Bible College, and the reason I have an affinity towards BBC, is because, not because it's perfect. Nothing's perfect. My church isn't perfect. No school is perfect. But you know what? When I come here, I know what I'm going to get. I know what I'm going to get. There's a trust that you have in an institution that you know what you're going to get. And you know what the students are going to be taught. And so we're all connected in one way or another. In fact, I still have many friends that I met here in school 39 years ago. That hurts me to say that. Brother Adams, we were in school together. That hurts me to say that because I'm one of the old guys. I don't feel old. But I am, I guess. Because you all look at me saying, yeah, you are. I can tell by the look in your eyes. Some of the professors that are still here when I was here, I thought they were old back then. Just think how old they really are now. I mean, Dr. Gleason, he's an old dude. There he is. I'd never call him a dude if I knew he was in here. Because I have great respect for Dr. Gleason. Or you must have really been young back then.
I was.
Maybe you just look old. But the students, we all look old. And but don't get too, you're going to be there one of these days. And so just give us a little break, all right? You know, we're all connected in one way or another, aren't we? We're just all connected. Now today as we begin, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've been married for 33 years to a lady by the name of Kathy. She grew up in our church. She was 5 years old when her parents got saved and began coming to our church. Her father was having a difficult time in life. He's in his early 30s. He looks into the yellow pages, into the church section. He finds our church, and he talks to my dad, and my father meets with him and leads him to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. I was in 6th grade. She was in kindergarten. I'm 5.5 years older than her. We have 4 beautiful daughters. 129, 126, 120, and 117. Beautiful daughters. And you know what? I always tell people, they have never, ever given us an ounce of trouble, other than having girl attitudes that they were born with. They have never given us an ounce of trouble. Never had any boy problems. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. They must really be bow wows. I mean, they really must be ugly. But I'm telling you, they are the most gorgeous things you ever saw in your entire life. So I have 4 beautiful daughters. One's married, and she's given us 2 fantastic, handsome grandsons. And so my wife, her name is Lolly, and my name is Pop. Get it? Lolly, Pop. You got to explain it. It's not funny. But those are our names to our grandkids. And one's 4, and one of them is 1. So they're doing great. And I always tell them, I said, I can't wait to see what the girl is going to look like, because these boys are so good looking. I just can't wait to see what the little girl's going to look like. And they roll their eyes at me, and you understand that. I've been in the same church all my life. My father came to Indianapolis in 1955. I was born in 1955. I've been at the same church my entire life. Can I get out of Indianapolis? I've been in the ministry at the same church for 36 years. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in just a moment. But you know what? In that 36 years, I've done it all. I've done it all. I was youth pastor for the first 5 years. In my 4th year as youth pastor, I was the assistant jail chaplain at the Marion County Jail in Indianapolis, where we had 399 professions of faith in the jail there in Indianapolis in that 1 year. I was a pastor of one of our satellite churches on the west side from 82 to 84, almost 2.5 years. And then I came back, and I was the business manager of our church and school and daycare and all of our ministries. We were about, when I got there, about $240,000 in the hole in bills due. And so I understand what BBC has gone through to some degree. And I got there. I'm 28 years old, and I've got $240,000 in bills due, going $10,000 a month in the hole. And it took me 10 years to pay all that back and get in the black. 10 years. I've been a school administrator, school teacher, school principal. I became the co-pastor of the church in 1987. I've been the senior pastor since 1996, the last 17 years. So you can see my motto has been, fake it till you make it. Because how could anybody know how to do all those things? So my philosophy has been just fake it till you make it. Just look real good, show up, and put a smile on your face, and just act like you know what you're doing, whether you know what you're doing or not. And that will get you a long way down the road. But the truth is, I like fixing things that are broken. Can I say that again? I like fixing things that are broken. I'm not really a good maintainer. I'm just always looking for something that's broken that I can fix. I think maybe that's one reason why I like to be in the ministry, because people are just broken. And I like to try to be used of God to fix them if we possibly can. And we fixed a few people through the years. God has used us anyway. And so I just like fixing things that are broken. Because I love the ministry. But you know what? I love my church. I love the Indianapolis Baptist Temple, or I would have been there for 58 years and 36 years in the ministry. I love our church. And I feel so indebted to my church and to the people of our church. You know, one of the things that's missing today is loyalty and faithfulness. You know, most people have the philosophy that I'm going to be nice to you as long as you're being nice to me. And as pastors, sometimes we really kind of get close to people that are helping us financially in the ministry and helping our works to go forward. And then when the money stops, you know, for some reason they're not our friend anymore. I've learned one thing. We just need to be thankful for people that God sends along that helps us along the way. And they may help us today. They may not be able to help us tomorrow. But if they've helped us today, even though they're not helping us tomorrow, let's just be thankful. And let's love them. Pastors really have a tough time getting over that. We kind of like the people that are just helping us at the time. We need to develop a faithfulness. We need to develop a loyalty. I love my church. It's where I grew up. It's where I was saved, baptized, and discipled. It's where I was called to preach. It was where I found my wife. It's where I graduated from high school. It's where I loved and trusted. It's where I make my living. I owe everything to the Indianapolis Baptist Temple. Everything. We owe so much to our churches, to our home churches, to our pastors. And you know, some of them may be a little outdated. You know, that's okay. Just go back and help them. I'm 58 years old. You know, one of my problems is I only have two, but you know what one of my two problems are? I'm 58 years old. I'm caught between two generations. I'm caught between my father's generation that trained me and your generation that doesn't want to do things like they did it. and I'm caught. So how do I make our church more youthful when it's 63 years of age and there are people there that have been there for 63 years and they're still there? How do you change things without alienating them, without running them off? Because not having old people in your church is like not having your grandparents at Christmas time. It's just kind of nice to have them around. And so everybody has to give and take a little bit if we're going to go forward and not die. As churches, as a movement, as a college, as a fellowship. And so I owe everything to the Indianapolis Baptist Temple. There's a man that is still in our church. He's way up in his 80s. He gave me my very first haircut, and he's still there. Now, he doesn't cut my hair anymore. In fact, let me tell you the last time he cut my hair. It was my second year at BBC. I was a dorm supervisor here, and everybody loves dorm supervisors. I was a dorm supervisor. Any dorm supervisors here? RAs, whatever you call them today? Anybody here? And you're willing to admit it? And I was a dorm supervisor, and so, you know, to be very truthful, you know, I didn't really like all the rules back then, and I really didn't like, you know, the haircut rules, and you know, I didn't really like all that, but you know, you had to submit. And brother Adams back there, you know, he had hair back then, and he even had to submit, and so I went to get I had to be here a week or two early because of the dorm supervisor position, and I walked into the barber shop. He cut my hair, and literally, I was 20 years old. He cut it so badly. It was so horrible. I got in my car, and I cried all the way to BBC. He's never touched my hair since. But his daughter cuts my hair today. But he's still in our church. He's still in our church. I know what some of you are thinking. It looks like he cut your hair again, but no. It was his daughter, so it's just similar. I owe everything to my church. Raise your hand back there when I need to be done, okay? All right, just raise your hand. Give me 5 minutes when I need to be done. I got 5 minutes to go?
No, you're good.
Shoot. As I said, these 3 days, these 2 days were tough to plan for, because there's so much I want to say in such a little time. Let me hurry. This brings me to my outline for our 3 sessions, 2 today and 1 tomorrow morning. I'm going to talk to you about the story, I'm going to talk to you about the stand, and I'm going to talk to you about the sequel. The story, the stand, and the sequel of the Indianapolis Baptist Temple. This morning, please listen. As we close out this first session this morning, let me give you 6 things needed to be used of God. I remember sitting here 39 years ago. We had some great speakers. Bruce Melton made an impact in my life. Jerry Thorpe made an impact in my life. Great founders of the BBF made a great impact in my life. Let me give you 6 ways to have longevity in ministry. To be at the same church for 36 years, to get over what you have to get over and do what you have to do, and accomplish what needs to be accomplished. As I think back over the last 36 to 39 years, there are many that I went to school with that are not in the ministry today. We want you, those leaders here today want you, as you begin, they want you to finish well. Let me give you 6 things you need to do to finish well and have some longevity in the Lord's Word. Number 1, we need salvation. We just need salvation. We need to make sure that we know Jesus Christ is our personal Savior. We make salvation so difficult today, but the Bible says, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and thou shalt be saved. We need salvation. Not only that, we need sanctification. You need to begin growing in the Lord, and it needs to start at Baptist Bible College. Not after you graduate. It needs to begin today. Your relationships with your girlfriend, your relationships with your boyfriend, your relationships with each other. We need some sanctification in our lives. We need some growth in our lives. We need some holiness in our lives. We need to be careful where we go and what we do and what we look at and what we see. We need salvation. We need sanctification. We need to continue that process of sanctification in our lives throughout the years. And even after we get married, we need to continue that process of growing in holiness. I'm not talking about being a prude. I'm not talking about not enjoying life. I'm not talking about those things. The last 2 or 3 weeks have been kind of crazy in my life. I've been to L.A., I've been to Las Vegas. I told our congregation Sunday the offerings have been down. So I went to Las Vegas, and thankfully they laughed like you did. Went for a niece's destination wedding. And last week I was in Paducah, Kentucky preaching, and this week I'm here. And so it's been kind of a whirlwind time. And I want you to know we need sanctification. No matter where we find ourselves, we need to grow in holiness. And we just need to be careful. A lot of junk out there today. So if we're going to have longevity in the ministry, we need salvation. We need sanctification. But not only that, we need service. There are a lot of people in the ministry, but they just don't really do a whole lot. We need to learn how to serve. We need to learn how to serve people. And even though I've been at the same church for 36 years, I want you to know that a lot of those people, they used to diaper my bottom. And they're still there. And you know what? I have to serve them. And I have to serve people that sometimes they don't like me very well, and they don't like the changes. And I told them yesterday. I said, you know, we're trying not to alienate anybody. We're trying to make our church younger. At the same time, we want to honor and appreciate those that are older and are the backbone of the church and give, and you've been here. And I said, so for you, we sing hymns, and for the others, we sing the praise and worship like you heard today, which was fantastic. And I said, so instead of making, one of you mad and one of you happy, we just make you all mad. So we try to have a blended service. We need to serve, though. The older people need to serve the younger people. The younger people need to serve the older people. There needs to be a common ground there, and that is the Master's plan. And the Master's plan is to make disciples. The Master's plan is is God's purpose. The Master's plan is Christ's commission. The Master's plan is to make disciples, to evangelize, to baptize, to teach. That's the Master's plan. And so however we go about doing that, the important thing is that we're doing the Master's plan and accomplishing what he wants accomplished. Jesus said, if you want to be great, you must serve. It begins now, while you're in school, not after you graduate. Serve. Have a servant's heart. That's what Jesus said to his disciples. There's something else that we need. We need sacrifice. I'm going to get out of sync here for a moment. We need sacrifice. We need to give ourselves. We need to give of our money. We need to give our all. When I got out of college, I went back to our church to be the youth pastor. My father and I had never talked about me coming back and working with him, ever in our lives. Until my last year of college, it was in November, our youth pastor was resigning, and he called me and said, our youth pastor resigning, you're graduating in May, would you like to come back? I said, let me pray about it and I'll call you. He was my dad. I didn't want to act like, I was too interested. Besides, I thought maybe I'd get more money out of it. That was a mistake. The older guys in the fellowship, their philosophy was, we're just gonna keep you humble and, not give you a whole lot, bless God. He'll take care of you. And he does. I think they pay me $8,000 a year. I think that was my starting salary. And then I get there, and my dad has to raise $1 million just to keep everything afloat. And I commit to $3,000. So I go out and borrow $3,000 and make payments on it so the church can stay afloat. I have never, ever not given to a project at our local church. Ever. And it really doesn't matter how much we give. What's important is that we have a heart to give. It's called sacrifice. And you know what? When we sacrifice for God's work, God takes care of us. He really does. Here's another one. We need submission. Loyalty is priceless. I worked with my father for 19 years. And let me tell you something. That's not always very easy. I was in a hotel last week in Paducah, Kentucky, and it was an Indian guy standing there, a young guy. I said, what's your name? He told me. I said, who owns this place? It was his dad. I said, you work for your dad? He said, yeah. I said, I understand the problem. I understand the difficulty. I worked with my dad for 19 years. I think there was only 2 times that we had a fight. I just got so mad, I just wanted to leave. But you know what? I submitted myself to his authority. Now, luckily, he just kind of left me alone most of the time, and I just got to do what I wanted to do. So, and I produced, so there wasn't really a whole lot to say to me, But I worked with him for 19 years. Now I've been the senior pastor for 17 years, and he's still trying to tell me what to do. That's never going to change. One day he was at the church, and one of our magnification leader, he sang something he didn't like, and I saw him out in the lobby just chewing on him. So I walked by, just gave him that look. John, you understand what I'm saying. Just kind of gave him that look. So I saw him later in the apartment, and we have a real nice apartment there, a new building that my parents stay in, and I walked in, I said, Dad, you're not the pastor anymore. You're not the pastor. Leave my associates alone. If you don't like something, tell me, but leave my people alone. And you know what? At 82 years of age, he's willing to submit to me. And he said, okay, all right. But I worked with him for 19 years, and I was loyal. Submission. Loyalty is priceless. But let me close with this, because I think I need to get done, don't I? Let me close with this. I got 3 minutes. You need surrender. There are about 4 times in my life that I've surrendered. I surrendered to the Lord when I got saved. I surrendered to the Lord when I got converted at age 16. Everyone needs a conversion that gets saved. I surrendered again when I was about 17 years of age in a youth rally type thing in our church, and surrendered to preach the gospel of Christ. And then when I was 18, I graduated from high school. I was sort of in that 3-week funk after you graduate from high school. Anybody Anybody ever get in that? Some of you? After you graduate from high school? And about 3 weeks afterwards, I'm in my room, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? If you're a preacher, you'll never be able to even afford a new suit. That's what the devil was telling me. I mean, he popped right up here on my shoulder, and he said, listen, as he whispered in my ear, if you're a preacher and you go to BBC next fall, you'll never be able to own a new suit. You'll never have any money. And I said, well, if that's the case, I don't think I want to be a preacher. So I started looking through some cards, graduation cards, and I looked through one. I found $5. Back then, that was big money. I found $5, so that made me feel a little bit better. It's sort of like the Lord saying, you know what? I can take care of you. Here's $5. And then I looked at the scripture there on the card. I don't even know who sent me the card. And it was a scripture in Psalms. And then in the middle of my Bible there, the little concordance area, there was another scripture that took me to 1 Timothy. And I looked over at 1 Timothy. And all of a sudden, as I began reading in 1 Timothy, it said, and the love of money is the root of all evil. The Spirit of God popped up on this shoulder and whispered in my ear, if you don't have anything, you still need to be a preacher. And you know what? I never had a problem with money and greed and covetousness ever again. At that time of my life, I surrendered to be a preacher, to go to Baptist Bible College, to study for the ministry, and I've never looked back. But you know what? I can't afford a new suit. I can afford a new house. I can afford a new car. I can afford about anything I want to buy within reason. But it all started out with surrender. You see, God will take care of you. God will take care of us. He promised He would. In fact, He said, if you'll give up houses and lands and property and moms and dads and brothers and sisters, I will give to you in this life and in the life to come 100-fold. That's His promise. So what He gives you may not be what He gives me, and what He gives me may not be what He gives you, but He will give to each of us what we need, and He will bless us. So if you're going to have longevity, you're going to have surrender in your life. Salvation, sanctification, service, surrender, sacrifice, submission. These 6 important things will give you longevity in the work